When I came to faith, I didn't know of the word apologetics. And when I first heard it, like many, I thought we're apologizing for something. I didn't understand it referred to the defense of the faith. And it's the Greek word apologia, that Peter famously uses in 1 Peter 3:15, where he says we should have an answer for those who have questions. We should have an answer for those who object. And of course, over the years, as a Jewish follower of Jesus, I got thrown in kind of the deep end of the pool, let's say the deep end of the ocean, and had to learn to swim on my own against the waves because I dealt with learned rabbis, devoted rabbis, men who had been studying Hebrew their entire lives, men who had forgotten more than I had learned, and here I am coming to them just with my English Bible and telling them who Jesus is, and they had, answers that challenged me and stuff, and ended leading to years of studying my PhD in Semitic languages from NYU and writing a 5-volume series on answering Jewish objections to Jesus, etc., and having many, many debates with rabbis. I would gladly have one time a week if I find rabbis that are willing to debate me. Most of them choose not to or prefer not to for a number of reasons. But every one of us has to deal with questions of faith. It could be a child asking about prayers that aren't answered. It could be a struggle in your church when the youth pastor died in a car wreck, this godly kid. What happened? It could be that one of your family members is an atheist. It could be your kid comes home and wants you to know I'm transgender and I want to have sex change surgery. How do we respond to that from a biblical viewpoint? And what about when you meet a Muslim who's not a terrorist and who's not a hateful person, who's a really nice lady or nice guy, and they start telling you about Islam and the Quran and why they believe in the Quran and not the Bible? We're not going to be experts in everything, but we're going to run into issues, and we need to have answers. So listen, yes, your relationship with the Lord, that's number one. That's first and foremost. Knowing Him, walking with Him, being intimate with Him, being filled with the Word, having the Word in your heart and your mind. Yes, that's number one. We all agree on that. But that's not the end all. That's the foundation. And renewing our minds and being able to respond intelligently to others is so, so important. Look, at the end of Acts, the 18th chapter, it tells us about Apollos. He was mighty in the Scriptures, but he had only known about the message of Jesus through John the Immerser, John the Baptist. So Priscilla and Aquila, they taught him the rest of what had happened, the life and ministry of Jesus, Yeshua, his death, his resurrection. And then it says that he was of great encouragement. If you look in verses 27 and 28 of Acts 18, that he brought great encouragement to the believers. He strengthened those who had been saved by grace because he mightily refuted the Jews. Here he is, a Jewish man, Priscilla and Aquila, also Jews. He mightily refuted the Jews in public debate, proving from the Scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. And this strengthened the believers. I've seen it over and over as I've done debates over the years that believers are strengthened. They have courage. Look, I'm not a scientist. I've got very little academic scientific knowledge except what I've read over the years, just trying to catch up and learn things that I missed in my school years. But there's John Lennox, who's brilliant, mathematician and scientist, and he can debate Richard Dawkins. And there's William Lane Craig, and there's this one, and there's that one. There are others who are great philosophers and great scientists and great researchers and have answers. So as long as I know they're there, I'm strengthened. You see that? But look, let's take a look at something. The Greek word apologia, okay? Let's look at how it's used outside of 1 Peter 3:15. I want you to get a feel for this word and why it is so important that we have a defense, that we have an answer. And look, you're going to be driven to study in areas where you're most challenged. You're going to be driven to study in the things you get hit with the most. Your atheist brother-in-law, your Jewish co-worker, your Muslim neighbor. That's what you're going to get challenged with. The Mormon that knocks at your door and that's got one of your kids asking questions. Ethical issues that are going to come up as your kids are hit with stuff in school. What you're bombarded with from your professor at college who wants you to know that the Bible's completely unreliable. And anyone with half a brain recognizes that. You're going to respond in the areas that you get hit with. So no one's going to be an expert in everything. But there are plenty of resources because there are experts for each individual field, thank God. And when something new comes up, then people will be raised up to answer. But be assured there are answers, even if you don't have all of them. So look at this. Acts 22:1, Paul speaking in Jerusalem before his people, Brothers and fathers, hear the defense, apologia, that I now make before you. You don't know what's been going on. You've heard these false charges against me. Let me give you the truth. Here's my defense. Acts 25:16 is there's a legal discussion going on, Roman law and custom. I answered them that it was not the custom of the Romans to give up anyone before the accused met the accusers face to face and had the opportunity to make his defense considering the charge laid against him. So you see, this word has that nuance, that answer, that element of defense, the defense of the faith. God doesn't need defending. No, he doesn't need defending in that he can defend himself. But when people come with charges and questions, we need to give an adequate biblical defense, an adequate rational and spiritual defense. But the preaching of the cross is foolishness to those who perish. Yes, it is foolishness to those who perish. Many who are seeking, many who have questions, have their hearts and mind open to listen to that message because of the answers that we give. Here, let me ask you this. Do you believe that the preaching of the cross, the preaching of the death and resurrection of Jesus, is the heart and soul of the gospel, the power of the gospel? Yes, we agree on that. If you preach that message yelling and screaming, cursing people, telling they're idiots and fools and using all kinds of profanity, but preaching the truths of the message in the midst of it, will you disqualify yourself and people not listen? Yes. In other words, how the message is packaged can influence whether people hear it or not, right? If you're standing there, say, with KKK signs and white hoods and preaching that same message, you're going to drive people away before they even listen because of all the racist and bigoted and hateful associations. So in the same way, if someone says, but how are you quoting the Bible? The Bible's outdated, and we don't even have a manuscript within 1,000 years from Jesus. And you can say, no, actually, we have thousands of manuscripts from within a few hundred years, and we've got all kinds of evidence. And have you actually read the Bible yourself? And the person's willing to listen. And maybe even if that person mocks, the others will say, he's got something to say. 1 Corinthians 9:3, as Paul is explaining things against his critics, this is my apologia. This is my defense. This is my answer to those who would examine me. 2 Corinthians 7:11, that the Corinthians, when they were deeply convicted of sin, they wanted to do everything they could to prove themselves innocent. Here is our defense. Here is our answer. Philippians 1:7. It is right for me to feel this way about you all, to have confidence in the growth of the Philippians, because I hold you in my heart. For you are all partakers with me of grace, both in my imprisonment and in the defense, the apologia, the defense and confirmation of the gospel. Paul said, this is my ministry. This is who I am. This is what I do. And I am in prison for my defense of the gospel. Again, not being defensive or apologetic, but a truthful answer to silence the critics, a truthful answer to help the honest seeker. Philippians 1:16, again, reaffirming that he is in jail for the defense, the apologia of the gospel. It's even in terms of just a legal defense, 2 Timothy 4:16. At my first defense, Paul says, no one came to stand by me. When I was defending myself before Caesar, when I was defending myself before Rome, no one came to stand by me. Defense, answer, a rational, clear response to silence the critics, to defend the truth, to exalt the truth, to help the seeker. And then 1 Peter 3:15, honor the Messiah as Lord. The Messiah as Lord is as holy, quoting from Isaiah the 8th chapter, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect. Of course, 1 Peter 3:15 being the most famous verse and the key text for apologetics. This word is found in the New Testament a bunch of times. It's something that applies outside of just defense of the faith. It is having an adequate answer. Everything we need is found in God and his wisdom and his word. Let us be well equipped, because there are many seekers who come angry, hostile, critical, but when you give them an answer with gentleness and respect, it paves the way for the gospel to go forward. said, listen to this.
I don't think there's any chance Ted Cruz can win a general, and here's why. One observation, I don't know, this seems to have slipped through the cracks a little bit, but Ted Cruz said